Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another session of our Ed Talk series. It's great to have everyone again. It's an honor this afternoon to welcome our beloved Dr. Jose Rivera from Cognia. Hello there, Dr. Rivera.
Hello. Good afternoon or good evening, Andrea and Gabriela. Thank you very much for the invitation. It is always a pleasure to collaborate with you.
Thank you, Dr. Rivera, for your kind words. Welcome, Gabriela. I am Andrea Ferrari, CEO and founder at Whole Schools International. And with my colleague, Gabriela, we have created this innovative space to inspire conversations around education during these times of change. And yes, education is transforming. And for Whole Schools, the pillars of well-being, happiness, equity, and innovation are those that will sustain a change that is future-proof and that can face the challenges of the short and the long-term consequences. For this reason, we gather in this space with educational experts that can guide our educational communities through their international perspectives. And so together with our dear heads of schools, teachers, parents, and students, we can co-create the new landscape in education. So exciting. And today we're honored again to have Dr. Rivera from Cognia working towards this theme, our discussion today, the power of diversity, fostering student agency, voice, and choice. And we're very, very happy to have Dr. Rivera as he is working through Cognia in quality assurance, of course, globally with different systems, corporations, and schools in Europe, Asia, Middle East, the United Arab Emirates, Africa, Australia, Canada, Latin America, and the Caribbean. So imagine how our conversation will be enriched today in this very fascinating topic of diversity. There's a lot to unpack in this title, Dr. Rivera, as we begin our conversation. Maybe you could help us unpack a little bit all of these different words that make it up.
Sure, my pleasure. Thank you very much. I mean, that presentation there was awesome. I feel humble already. As we move forward with the prospects of education, right, 21st century, we realize that it is important to focus education on the learner, right? That has to be the main focus of all of educational endeavors and educational practices. So when we talk about putting the student at the center, that individual, right, at the center of all the process, then we need to understand that they are all diverse. They have their own talents, interests, motivators, backgrounds, levels of readiness in the different aspects of the academic programs and subject. There's a power there that we need to tap in order to be able to achieve student engagement, right? So we are talking about an important shift, the mindset of educators and education agencies and institutions in terms of bringing that new mindset of learner-centered learning environments into play, right? So that's pretty much like the main frame of it all. I mean, this is not something new. I would say that for a while now, and I would say that even for decades, there was sort of theoretical understanding regarding this very important aspect of education, that need to promote change in educational practices so that we can create learner-centered learning environments. The problem, though, was not with the understanding of the importance of that change, but the implementation, right? So that was a struggle. And I have to say that I'm very happy to report that based on my experience, what I've seen in educational institutions all over the world, um, educational institutions are already overcoming that very first barrier on how to, right? How do I really create, support, maintain active learning, student-centered learning environments?
What a very profound and deep answer. We understand student-centered, meaning that we are bringing the student back into their role, into a protagonistic role, or maybe the actors that are forging their own experiences in learning. So I love how you say bring them back to the center. I'm wondering how one goes about, and I know that Cognia does this very intentionally, fostering student agency, student voice. How are those different? How would you describe that process and promoting student engagement? What would that look like?
So Cognia is much more than just an accreditation agency, right? We are expert on our expertise in school improvement, and we provide a wide array of scientific tools that are available to our member schools in order for them to promote effective, updated educational practices. Now, when we talk about student agency, student voice, and student choice, we are talking about the possibility of students being ever more responsible, aware, and to a certain degree in charge of their process. Now, this is actually a process. This is nothing that can be done, overnight, because there are a lot of elements that will come into play. For instance, when we think about the role of the educator, teachers, this require a new set of skills that will allow that teacher to become a coach and a facilitator, right, of student-centered activities. But this is a new paradigm for teachers. It isn't because I have to say that I do not agree when it is stated that learner-centered environments means that the teacher just kind of disappears, right? That is just not the case. The role of the teacher, of the educator, is just more sophisticated and more versatile, because he is the one in charge of assessing readiness levels, having also a profile of students, so that he can quantify, elaborate, implement, facilitate, and monitor activities and experiences that will be meaningful, right, for students, where students will be actively engaged, they will be collaborating, they will be retrieving information, they will be sharing information, they will be developing projects, promoting solutions to actual life problems and situations. So it isn't like the teacher disappears, because this is not something that the students will be able to do without professional guidance. So that's pretty much the setting for educators. So, and it also has to do with the sense of empowerment, right? We usually think uh, about empowerment in the terms of human resources, right? That's pretty much the frame that you use. And we tend to think that being empowered, right, as an employee, for example, as a staff, as a human talent, that means that you are motivated and inspired, right? Well, actually, empowerment has to do a lot with being motivated and with being inspired. But that also has to do with having the right information, right? Having the resources, the support structure, the SOPs. So when we talk about student agency, student voice, student choice, we are talking about leader by leader, allowing those students to being more and more empowered of their process. So it is not only about, motivating students and inspiring students. That's definitely an important token that has to be there, but also providing the right information, having the resources, having the materials, having the instructions, the step-by-step, the guidance, right, and the monitoring. So there's a lot that comes into play here, but I think that is the right path.
I love that, but I love the fact that what you're saying is we need to take it a step to a more structured way of doing it, because we all want that. I mean, in theory, the talking about inspiring students and making them more engaged, but then translating that into a reality with the challenges that we have now, and all the obstacles and barriers that you were mentioning is just so difficult. So I think that's one of the pluses of having a community of schools, or the support of someone like Cognia, who can come and just help achieve this in a real way through the difficult, all the difficulties that do come up when we try to aim that high, which we should, right?
Absolutely. I totally agree. We should. And it all comes down to not being discouraged, right? To persevere, to always put yourself as an educator in a position of learning and strategically, right? Try new things, so that you can know yourself as a new educator, as this educator that can actually facilitate active learning environments, right? And you in leader by leader, and with due support with colleagues, engaging in professional learning communities, engaging in job-embedded professional development and professional learning, and researching, get to know what will work for you, what you can share with your colleagues, what you can learn from other systems and from other models and cultures, so you can apply and adapt. Because that is the profile of new generations of students, right? And it is exciting. I mean, it is exciting because you are a student yourself as you do this. So it is very exciting. It's very inspiring. It has to do with staying young in spirit and staying, with an uplifted spirit. So you can promote agency, student voice, student choice, and student engagement.
I think that it's part of what you're saying is reaching that place where the teacher almost takes on the role of the student. You said it yourself, putting themselves in a position of constantly learning, of constantly applying new ways of thinking. So modeling the same thing, or the same behaviors or the same actions that we would expect from our students, but displaying them ourselves and acting by those same means. I love the idea of community, and beyond that, I think I want to explore your point here on having content, processes, products, the environment. How do we set up such an ecosystem, if we can call it such? And what does that look like for Cognia? And that's a huge benefit for communities. And all those who are out there listening this evening, please send us any comments and questions you have as we listen to our very wise and knowledgeable Dr. Rivera. We're happy to engage you in the conversation this evening. So Dr. Rivera, a little more about these processes, products and structures in the environment that surrounds.
Great. So yes, I'm willing to engage in this topic. Well, so let me tell you something. So bottom line, the purpose and the objective of every educational setting, right, and program will be student performance, right? That will be student performance, student academic performance, and also the development of the character, tap into the values, the beliefs, the social emotional well-being of students, right? So not long ago, I was listening to Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, which is an educator, more from the scientific realm, but he was trying to provide like an analogy, and it was very interesting that he mentioned that so students we have kids, we have little kids, and they're playing, they're creating things, they're exploring, right? And they are learning while they are doing that. They spend the first years of their life learning that way, and then we take them to school, and we ask them to sit down, to be silent, and to listen, right? So I'm not saying that is not a kind of valid structure that can be used, and that learner cannot have there. But the new generations of students, they are eager to have other meaningful experiences, right? And so when the theory of differentiated learning started having an impact, and actually later on its impact was huge in the development of the No Child Left Behind and Every Student Succeeds Act, right? It was stated in terms of content, processes, products, and environments. And why is that? Well, because this is not like we just want students to explore and to collaborate and to sometimes even play without structure, right? That is not what we are saying. Actually, this type of setting will require a larger and more solid and sophisticated structure than traditional learning, right? Because you are leading a team of learners. You are leading a team of learners in their own endeavors. So it all has to start with assessment, right? With readiness levels, and also with a kind of, I won't say complete, but a satisfactory student profile, right? That is the way that you can start looking for ways of engaging in quality differentiation. Because now I know that I am not the one supposed to be asking questions in this session. I mean, but let me please allow me to ask one question. If you have a class, if you have a group of 25 students, right? How many readiness levels will you have?
Well, normally in any classroom setting, we would begin by, as you said, the assessment piece or having a diagnostic that would enable us to create at least a 3-step level of differentiated instruction, what everybody, you know, must do, which is the basic objective, and then 2 more steps, no, to be able to then provide for individualized attention and let the students flow freely. But I'm assuming your question is not getting at that, but more deeply, if we have 25 different profiles and we have 25 different mindsets and different talents and different interests and different
and also readiness levels. I mean that's the reason why we use tier in differentiation, because if you have 25 students in a class, you will have 25 readiness levels for any subject matter. I mean, for any subject matter, right? So here's the thing. So we cannot, more than 90% of institutions all over the world cannot provide personalized or individualized learning for 25 students in each classroom, right? But we have, nonetheless, 25 readiness level. That's the reason why assessment is so important for differentiation, right? Assessment, pre-assessment at the beginning, and formative assessment during the whole process, because then, right, as you mentioned, we cannot afford to have like 25 tiers, right? we have them there, but we cannot afford to contemplate differentiated activities for 25 different tiers. So the difference between differentiation, personalization, and individualization of learning is that, okay, if you provide individualized learning, okay, so that's one-on-one. Okay, there's few institutions that can do that. We work actually with individualized learning centers and institutions, and the personalized learning is because you have a group of the likes, right? That they have kind of the same interest. They are in the same, let's say, tier in terms of readiness. And there's a level of commitment and other aspects that characterize those learners that you can allow them to guide the process. But when you have 20, 25, 30 students, and you cannot engage in personalized learning. But in order to promote student engagement, student agency, student voice, then we tap into differentiation, right? Which means that you will assess, you will look at a profile, you will be able to develop activities that will allow them to be engaged in the process, actively engaged. Each time they will be able to gain more, be more empowered. But once again, I mean, conceiving those activities and implementing those activities requires a new set of skills and a new also mindset for teachers and educators.
Yeah, when you said that, the one thing that kept going through my mind is we have to create a culture that truly understands and values assessments. because they're not used in the correct way. And I think what ends up happening is we don't really get all of that you had just described, in order to help the students. They just feel, that they're being graded, and that is something that they're being judged or evaluated, and it's not really being used into the teaching strategies that will help students engage and do all these amazing things. Because even though we can't individualize or personalize it so well, we can at least come more prepared. But the problem is, if we don't change that mindset you just mentioned, then it just does not happen. Even though we might, give the schools the type of instruments or trainings, or it really has to sink in and change the view, right?
And
Absolutely.
also to Gabriela, I would add, and this is something you mentioned, Dr. Rivera, that it's important to start with if we're going to look at student performance and engagement, it's important to build up from the student profile. And the student profile is a lot more than just gauging readiness levels. It's also too involves that very critical piece, which is the development of the social and the emotional realm, which comes back to the self. We know from the master of Vygotsky that, under social constructivist theory, we learn about ourselves from others. And as we know more about ourselves, we relate better to others. And I love the concept of our friend in common, Mimi from Notion, said the other day that in the classroom, they've coined the term learning guardians for teachers. And I love this idea whereby, as you were saying, they're coaching and facilitating in their role, but they're also guardians of something precious, which is that centerpiece. And you said it at the start, the student at the center. And if we hold on to that treasured idea that everything begins with them, then that uniqueness of each one is what will define that profile, right? That will ultimately lead to the best engagement and, discovering their voice and making their choices. And of course, hand in hand, the teacher's role needs to also evolve and change accordingly or adapt accordingly. As you said, adapt and apply and adapt and shift and evolve and change constantly. We have about 2 minutes left of our program this evening. I do not want to let you go without making a mention of this unique opportunity that's coming up for us, for all of us that are following. Please make a note, because we have the annual conference of Cognia coming up this year in Atlanta, Georgia, December 6th through 8th. We are very much looking forward to being within the community of learners in developing and strengthening and capitalizing on our strengths. So the Impact Conference, please tell us a little bit more about that. What will it be about? How can we benefit from that? And thank you, Dr. Rivera, for including us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And thank you very much for the opportunity. I mean, Cognia hosts different international conference in different parts of the world, and always our Latin America, Canada, and the Caribbean International Conference is in Atlanta. Last time we were on site there was in 2019, I think. So we are thrilled and excited to join all educators from the region. Our theme is impact, and we are going to be presenting the new protocol, the new set of standards, has to do with culture, with leadership, with engagement and growth. And also we have very, very interesting topics such as, fostering student agency through adaptive learning algorithms and other very amazing topics. Our CEO and President, Dr. Mark Elgar, will be there with the keynote. So we are excited to join all the wonderful educators from this region. Can I just mention? I know that we are tight time, But I just want to mention a huge red flag that we need to be aware of when we talk about differentiation, and it is not to label, because when we don't have the time today. Sorry about that. I think this is a topic in which we can go much further and in depth. But when we assess readiness levels and we tier, right? That does mean that we are going to be putting a label on students, that they will not be able to grow at their own pace and move, right? Sort of freely, with flexibility. So maybe that's an important topic to tap in another session.
I love that as a concluding thought, but we also, before we let you go, and we'll take just a couple more minutes, you know, our teachers are getting ready to go back into our classrooms next Monday. I'm referring to schools back in Mexico City, or most schools. And as we think about starting a new school year and tackling, you know, the challenges ahead, what would be your advice to all those teachers listening in this afternoon for creating a classroom environment where all students feel like they belong? Because isn't that going to be part of the key to a successful school year?
No, I mean, first off, my hats off to all educators. You know, the great work they have been doing during pandemic. I mean, it's amazing. It's awesome how resilient they are, how committed they are, how they show that they love being an educator and kids. So, but I will go back to what Gabriela mentioned early on in terms of creating a culture, assessment-based culture. It is important to commit to formative assessment. I mean, we need to do that, because that is the way in which we are going to be monitoring the process. And when we talk about culture, usually we think about culture in terms of something that is vague and abstract. I mean, something that cannot be grasped, something that you feel but you cannot see. Well, not so, because if you can actually measure, you can actually see if there's a culture of assessment in an educational institution, right? You can actually see if there's that level of commitment, that level of structure, where assessment, quality assessment, is applied on schedule and is protected in the institution, and results are used for analysis purpose in terms of discovering where we are at, how can we improve, right? So I would say commit to formative assessment.
Excellent. What a great way to say that. Get yourself on the right path to commit to growth, to constant improvement. And that's what it looks like, right? That thing that you cannot grasp, that culture idea of a culture of assessment or evaluation, leads to this, to the continuous improvement, continuous growth. I think we're definitely getting carried away with our time ticking here, but it's just so interesting, and it's hard to let you go, Dr. Rivera. We're certainly enjoying ourselves, and we're blessed with having you participate on behalf of Cognia, as we know is a valuable mark of distinction that is recognized around the world. And we're very, very proud to have had you in our session today, and look forward to collaborating in the very near future. Dr. Rivera, a big hug from all of us here at Whole Schools.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, everyone, for kindly, joining the conversation today. Andrea and Gabriela, always my pleasure.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and we'll see you very soon.
Take care.
Take care.